Today's Q&A is about gluten-free on Pesach. And the question is, my family is gluten-free, so does that mean we could just eat all of our gluten-free food on Pesach because it doesn't have any gluten in it? Well, people who are celiac or who otherwise are choosing to avoid gluten will not eat any foods that have wheat, rye, spelt, or barley. And at first glance, it sounds great. Then if it's gluten-free, it must be okay for Pesach. Well, the simplest reason why that's not correct is that oats is one of the 5 grains which could become chametz, and it's also gluten-free. So that's one simple reason why gluten-free does not mean it's kosher Pesach. And the second is that Ashkenazim do not eat kitnias, which includes corn, rice, and beans, and they're all gluten-free, and it includes lots of other foods, soy and other foods also. Those are all gluten-free, but they're not allowed to be eaten. Now, even more surprising to most people is that in recent years, companies have started producing gluten-free wheat flour. So some people call it merino flour, gluten-free wheat flour, which people make bread and challah, and of course it's chametz. So not only could it be oats and could there be kitnias, but there could even be wheat, which is gluten-free. Now, just it's worth noting, the flour itself is also chametz, because the way the gluten is separated from the wheat to make this special flour uses water. So this kind of flour needs to be gotten rid of before Pesach. It's not like regular flour that's a safek chametz. This flour is for sure chametz. Okay, now other reasons. Let's think of other reasons. Let's talk about other reasons why gluten-free does not automatically mean it's kosher Pesach. And that is that to qualify as gluten-free, the FDA requires that the food has to have less than 20 parts per million of gluten. And that's, if that's okay for people who are celiac, that's okay with us. But that doesn't tell us whether you made this food on equipment that was used for chametz, or whether it had actual contact with chametz, with gluten-free grains while it was in transit, as of course that definitely does happen. So that would be a reason, another reason to think that just because something is gluten-free doesn't mean it's okay for Pesach. But really, there's an even more fundamental reason why gluten-free products are not necessarily okay for Pesach. And that is because the standards for gluten-free and chametz-free are not the same at all. Gluten refers to a specific protein, certain specific proteins, gliadin and hordein and secalin, I don't know if I pronounced that right, that are found in certain grains. And as long as those proteins are not in the food, you can mark the food as gluten-free. So now the grains have other parts of it, like starch, which could be gluten-free, but are definitely chametz. Like, for example, in some countries, they take wheat starch, they turn it into glucose, which becomes alcohol, and then becomes vinegar. And the vinegar could be called gluten-free, but the product is for sure not okay for Pesach. An example that all of us can see is Benefiber. The Benefiber powder is made from pure wheat dextrin, and it's pure chametz. Even so, but since it has no wheat protein in it, it's labeled gluten-free. And Scotch whiskey is made of malted barley and is for sure chametz. That's all it is. It's just barley and water. But the Scotch Whiskey Association, that the people, the trade group for them, tells you that it's okay for celiacs. Well, they pronounce it a little differently. Celiacs, I don't know if I pronounced that right, because there's none of the proteins that the celiacs need to avoid are in those foods. So that tells us, and this is like a variation of the flour that I mentioned that beforehand, that the standards for gluten-free is not the standards as chametz-free, and therefore just because something is gluten-free does not mean that a person could eat that food on Pesach. So if you want to eat food for Pesach, you should make sure it's kosher Pesach, and not just rely on a company's claim that the food is gluten-free.